Kelli Burns. I'm currently at a life insurance retirement and benefits company. It's called Symetra.
Mm-hmm.
And I am the acting CISO here, as
Mm-hmm.
well as I also manage all of the employee experience. So you can think
Oh.
about any of the capabilities around Slack, O365,
Mm-hmm.
basically any type of technology that hits every employee in the company.
Mm-hmm.
So those are under my preview. And then I recently took over the product management office. So all of product is starting to roll into me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a new fun role just to understand that piece. We are moving to a product and agile operating model. And so just helping to transform the
Mm-hmm.
IT department in that space, as well as help be a critical part on the business strategy. So I sit as the main person for the digital strategy
Mm-hmm.
and help build that out as well. And yeah, I am in Seattle. I started my career in Big Four consulting.
Mm-hmm.
I spent about 6 years in the consulting days, and my primary background was in security. And then I went to in-house and just
Mm-hmm.
have kind of built the program at Symetra. I've been there for 7 years now.
Wow.
And so when I started there, they didn't have a program. So now they
Mm-hmm.
do. We have about 19 people on the team.
Mm-hmm.
We only had one when I started. And so we just last year got ISO certified. So that was a huge win.
Oh, wow.
Um, and yeah, it's been cool. As far as, personally, I have two kiddos. I have a 2 and a 4-year old,
Mm-hmm.
Jordan and Skylar.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, my husband and I, we have a house in the mountains, and that's kind of our go-to just to get away from the city. We live in the
That's
heart
great.
of
Yeah.
Seattle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, we're like right in the chaos of everything. And so we
Mm-hmm.
go to the mountains just
Mm-hmm.
to get away and
Wow.
get some outdoor time.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, you must be really busy because it
Yeah.
sounds like you're wearing multiple hats there too. It's not
Oh
like,
yeah, too
yeah.
many hats. I'm working on that. I'm trying to, do some
Yeah.
delegation. I've got someone
Yeah.
on my team that I'll probably promote into the CISO soon, and so I'm
Oh,
working
okay.
on it.
So you're kind of transitioning into these other, I guess,
Yeah,
roles.
just hire executive. Yeah, security will probably always report into me and
Mm-hmm.
so on and so forth. But just different roles.
Mhm, mhm. By the way, how's the air quality there right now?
Yeah, it's a little bit better today, but it was really bad. So it was like
Mm.
extreme, and you're not supposed to go outside the
Oh,
last
okay.
3 days. So today was much
Wow.
better. But I don't recommend having a 2 and 4-year old in a house for
Oh, I
70
know.
hours. It's
Yeah.
not fun.
So in Seattle, I guess you're also affected by the fires.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit better today. I mean, yesterday, so we're in a high rise and we're on the 20th floor. I couldn't see any building in the
Mm-hmm.
city.
Oh
That's
my
how
gosh.
like deep it was
Mhm.
and dark. So
Yeah.
today I can see buildings, so that's
Wow.
nice.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting because for the past several years, I guess the West Coast has been really like disaster, I guess, hit, and so I had to go and visit LA a lot. I mean, for the past several years, and one of the trips I had was, I guess, right in the middle of, I guess, avalanches,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then I actually saw the uh, dirt, and the road was blocked, and I couldn't go to work for like, I don't know, 4 days or something
Mm,
like that. So that was interesting.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's scary.
yeah.
Oh,
But now fires, oh my gosh.
yeah. I grew up in Montana, so I'm like
Mhm,
really used to fires, but
mhm.
these are nothing like I've ever seen.
Yeah,
So they're pretty bad.
very, very serious. Yeah. So one of the questions I had for you was, I guess, regarding our first discussion activity, and I really enjoyed I mean, reading your responses there because you're really a practitioner, and the scenario happens to be making you a chief security information officer, right? CISO, and then you are actually that person, right? So What was it like to work on that assignment? I was just curious.
To what?
What was it like to work on that
Oh,
assignment?
yeah. So are you talking about the project one where like I used like this CNN and pretend that I was going back and forth with them? Is that what you're talking
No, no,
about?
no. I'm talking about the first discussion activity
Oh, the
where,
intro
yeah,
discussion.
you wear a CISO hat and then, you propose this new data-driven network security approach,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. So I think that, part of it, like one of the most important things that I've learned in my career and
Mm-hmm.
taking a step back is learning
Mm-hmm.
how to speak to it from a business perspective.
Right.
And I think that when you start to overlay like the business outcomes and
Mm-hmm.
how something like, hey, I want to put in an advanced SIM, this is what the outcome is of that.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at the capabilities around phishing, right? A lot of folks will think of your typical like, oh, I'm going to have something to click, I'm going to do some training. And really, like when you look at the phishing threat, you want probably 8 to 10 capabilities to really keep yourself on lock. And so
Right.
I always use the example to say, hey, it's kind of hard to explain to an executive what DMARC is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to have
Mm-hmm.
it fully enabled. Like that's a
Mm-hmm.
complicated topic. But
Mm-hmm.
when I say, hey, at the end of the day, someone can't use your name or our
Mm-hmm.
domain out on the internet in the wild, and then I show them that their name was actually tried to use over 400,000 times, like something starts clicking, right? We
Right.
blocked all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing goes for just around our alerting.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try to show some things to them where I say, hey, in the previous world, we had up to 10,000 alerts. In this new world, we have up to 300,
Mm-hmm.
where we actually are able to make really thoughtful decisions about them because the
Right.
technology is learning, right? The
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
technology is learning that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this DBA, he's up all the time at
Mm-hmm.
3 in the morning. So we're not going to call that out as behavior that we don't like. And I think that that's the important thing when
Right.
we use LogRhythm on prem, we use Alert Logic in the cloud, and really just I think one of the biggest things I've learned too is the importance of cross-functional teams.
Mm-hmm.
So like as I'm building out the fraud strategy right now, I'm pulling someone from the data analytics team, the data engineering team, the security engineering team, and then the product team, right?
Right.
Let's make fraud a product.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there might be some technologies that we bring on, but I think at the end of the day, I need a data scientist to tell me where's going to be the best data to pull from because I
Right.
want to start to get some of those synergies
Mm-hmm.
between the call center, right, and chat. I
Mm-hmm.
want to know if someone hit the call center, hit chat, sent us an email, and also did something else, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
that might mean some behavior that we don't like to see.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think those are probably the two biggest tips I always give is like talking real business outcomes, not in
Mm-hmm.
security talk.
Right. Right.
And I think second is learn to use cross-functional teams, use people
Mm-hmm.
across the company that have these like really incredible skill sets. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, in the future, I'd love to have at least two data scientists on my team, right? Just because it starts to create the notion that you don't even need to live in the data science org. You can be in the space and maybe, badge into that community or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, the world is becoming more and more that way. And even in research now, we have these interdisciplinary teams instead of, one person just specializing in one thing and trying to work on a particular topic because the problem is getting more complex and you cannot really solve that problem on your own anymore. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Well, I
In
think
the
too, it
mhm,
goes back to like kind of that diversity of thought,
mhm,
right? Is
mhm,
like, you have to have different people at the table, different
mhm,
backgrounds,
mhm,
different races. You
mhm,
have to make sure that you have a diverse group of people when
mhm,
you're sitting there and you're thinking through things because they will bring different perspectives. So, obviously DE&I is near and dear to my heart. And,
mhm,
you know, like that probably is my biggest success in cybersecurity. We're running about I'd say 52% racially
Mhm.
diverse on my team
Mhm.
and 48% female, which is just kind of
Oh,
unheard
wow.
of, right? And
That's
so
phenomenal.
building some of those
Mhm.
practices of how you get females into cybersecurity and how you
Mhm.
know, a lot of my techniques have come from
Mhm.
actually building them within the company to
Mhm.
get there instead
That's
of
great.
trying to go find a female in cybersecurity
Mhm.
like that. That can be difficult to find.
That's a little challenging, yeah. So we're actually on the supply side, and we have these classes, and it's very rare for me to find any, female students actually majoring in
Mhm.
cybersecurity. But all our female graduates are doing really well. But I guess there have to be more people interested in cybersecurity. I guess that's the challenge.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think too that there's this layer of like, you have to put in the work as a company, right? You really have to like create a program, create a plan to get females. You know,
Mhm.
even getting females in IT, like, you know, national average is like 29%,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and cybersecurity is 9%. And so
Mhm.
that math just doesn't play well if you're not really fighting for it.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's really important as well.
So yeah, recruiting I guess is really important
Lots of
there.
recruiting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And I think too that like it's a space where, you know, just like anything. So if you look at the VPs in my company
mhm.
that are in IT, you know, there's 9 males and me.
Oh,
So
I
we gotta
know.
keep fixing that, right? Like we gotta get like, you know, 7 and 3, 6 and 4.
That
So
that makes you
it's,
special, but at the same time,
yeah,
sometimes you feel a little lonely. I know that.
yeah, you know, there's a lot of meetings where I'm the other, you
Mhm.
know, and I do have privilege. I'm white, so that
Mhm.
there's power that comes in that. But still, I do understand a little bit of like, hey, it would be great to have some more females on that leadership
Oh
team.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot I can say about being a minority and all
I'm
that.
sure you've been another.
Yeah, but I think what's important is also you being strong, develop that kind of inner strength to be able to really take on those things, and keep
Yeah, and
going.
I think one of the biggest, you know, qualms why it's hard for women to get into
Mhm,
technology is, you know, multitude of things of how they're
mhm,
treated or,
mhm,
you know, just biases that they're not technical enough. You know, I've been through all of those my whole career.
mhm,
And what I've realized is like the more that you can let people know that,
mhm.
hey, if I don't know something, I'm going to go to my SMEs, just like
Mhm.
you would, right?
Right,
Like
right. Exactly.
I'm if I'm past my marker, you know, if we're talking something highly complex,
Mhm,
I have a, you know, very senior cloud security engineer that I'm going to
mhm.
go to and be like, what does this mean?
Oh
And
yeah.
we'll get on a whiteboard, we'll talk it
Mhm,
through. He'll tell me, you know, one of my favorite questions to ask is what are we saying no to? Because
mhm,
that always draws out what's the other options,
mhm,
right? If we say yes to, hey, we're not going to domain join these things in the
mhm,
cloud,
mhm,
what are we saying no to? Well, we're
mhm,
saying no to a major, you know, a potential of getting a major breach, right? And
mhm,
you have to play out all of those before you make a decision.
mhm. Yeah.
So everything's like a mini risk assessment in my head. So I'm going through like, okay, if we go this way, this is what could happen. If we don't go, it's actually worse if we don't do it this way, right?
Right.
And so it's just whenever I talk to people about my decision making process, I'm like, I definitely just weigh out if what happens if I don't do it. And
Yeah.
are we just staying status quo? Or are we doing things we've always done? Like I also don't want that to happen.
Yeah, making your decision-making process transparent, I guess, is
Yeah,
really
yeah,
important, and also making it more scientific, like using risk analysis methodologies and so on,
yeah,
instead of just telling people to do things. So,
yeah. We've built out a pretty strong risk management
mhm,
program, and anytime
mhm,
someone's like, I'm not going to fix it, I'm like, write it up. You know, that
mhm.
goes into a full risk analysis. We
Oh
see
yeah,
how much it is, and
yeah.
we write a memo, and then we hand it to their business partner and say, sign off. And a lot of
Mhm.
times their business partner is like, I'm not signing off on this. And they go fix it, you
Yeah,
know? And
yeah.
so I'm a big fan of like I enable the business. I'm not a blocker, but I'm there
Yeah.
to show you like, hey, you can take that, you can make that decision, but here's the risk of it. And if you're okay with it, let's move forward.
Mm-hmm.
It is not my job to be the primary decision maker,
Mm-hmm.
because that's risks that some people want to make. It's my job to lay it out and say this is what could go wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
I
and a
really.
lot of times they tend to flip, they tend to side with me. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a nice way of saying, hey, ball's in your court. Here's the detailed write up. Let us
Mm-hmm.
know what you're thinking,
Yep.
you know?
Wonderful. Yeah. It's interesting because I'm sort of in that stage of my career too. So I'm more like an administrator in higher education.
Yeah.
And so I think about, my next job and my roles and how I can do my job better and all that. And I think you're sort of moving into that stage of your career too at
Yeah.
a much younger age, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I
I
think
think
we have
it just
something
all
common
comes
going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just all comes from experience. And, I think leading with empathy and having emotional intelligence in the workplace is super
Exactly.
powerful. And, I'm a big fan of like just helping people to see their potential.
Mm-hmm.
So once they kind of get to where they're headed and
Mm-hmm.
they might think that, hey, I've hit it. And I'm like, nope, you still got lots of fun stuff to do and you're going to do great work. And I think there's something about just my core values is seeing potential in underrepresented people,
Right.
right? Making sure that they have the opportunity, the chances. And these are like small things that show up in your day to day to say, hey, I I don't usually go to this person. I'm gonna go to them next time. Like, we all have our I wouldn't call them favorites, but there are people that can
To
just
go
get
to
it
go
done the way you
person. Yeah.
do. Yeah. And we gotta be really careful with that. So that's a big deal for me is like how do I create opportunities for those
Mhm.
that might not have it?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And that just creates this culture of inclusion and people
Mm-hmm.
feeling heard also it helps them grow, right?
Oh yeah.
Like I'm like, there's nothing better when you go from yesterday to today and you learn something and you
Mm-hmm.
feel stronger. Like that's a good place to be in your life. And so that's just kind of the culture that I want to breathe and bleed and make sure that everybody knows like that everybody's got a chance.
Yeah, empowering people like that, I think is very important. And I am thinking that because you are a minority in a sense, right? I'm a
Yeah,
female
yeah.
in IT,
Yeah,
and that actually makes you a stronger leader because you know how people feel about these things. And I feel the same about myself because I am in this position, so I can appreciate much more, and
yeah,
that makes me become a better leader. So I really appreciate the fact that I'm a minority and I have a like a different kind of skin color and
yeah.
all those types of things.
Yeah, because that all matters, that's what makes you awesome, and that those are the differences that need to be celebrated,
Hmm.
and bring in different perspectives,
Hmm.
cultural values, all those things really matter at the table when you're in a team and you're trying different things out.
And I really like the fact that you're trying to do it like every time you work with people and every day, every moment, because I mean, you can talk about diversity and inclusion forever, but
Yeah,
like when you're actually working with people, if you're not using that idea, it's almost good for nothing. So
yeah,
practicing it whenever you have an
yeah.
opportunity, I think is really the key. Yeah.
Well, I think it just gets back to like moments matter, right?
Hmm.
When I think about like the spaces that I've been in my life in different careers, like the best employers, the best leaders,
Hmm.
they're there when the moment matters, right? So having a baby, going through a tragic thing, maybe
Hmm.
you lost a parent or a spouse, um, going through maybe just some mental health stuff, like having a
Hmm.
hard time, all these things, like how your employer or your leader shows up
Hmm.
can be instrumental in your life
Exactly.
because they're a support system. And
Hmm.
so I always talk to other leaders about this and that like D and I doesn't need to be big verbose plans and yes, we need to fix some of those like structural systemic things that come up, because we're going to have to keep working on those for like hundreds of years to fix them. But you can just show up differently. You know,
Oh
you
yeah.
can show up as a leader and ask more questions instead of talking. You can listen more. You can bring other people to the table. You can recognize really good behaviors instead of just behaviors that are not.
Oh yeah.
You can acknowledge if someone hurt someone in a meeting. You know, the number of times I've been in a meeting where another leader just says something that you're like, that was so not cool, you know, and being able to say, hey, I didn't appreciate that. Like, you could have just hurt this person's feelings. Let's
Exactly.
talk that through. You know, like we kind of need to keep creating a gracious space in the workplace, because a lot of the topics that are coming up now and some very serious, you know, systemic things, we've got to create this space so that we can give people feedback and coaching.
Exactly. Yeah. It's always easier said than done. So
Yeah, it's hard when you're in it.
that's what I'm trying to do every day, even with my students. You know, I try to
Yeah,
be
I'm sure you have those moments where you're like, oh, you know,
more
you gotta,
understanding, compassionate, and all that.
yeah, you gotta give grace or compassion. And I just had a scenario with another professor where I just said, hey, like, you're not giving a lot of grace on this. And, you know, I can understand why. I bet you get lots of requests, and, you know, but I think it was important for me just to say what was on my mind, and like,
Oh yeah.
I at least want to be heard, you know what I
Exactly.
mean? And that's okay. It's still okay if this person makes the same decision. But I was just kind of like, hey, like, you know, I've been in this scenario before. It was a few semesters ago. It was a very difficult team member. I tried everything to help them, get them resources, and it really just, as a working mom, like, it added 5 to 10 hours a week on
I
my
know.
schoolwork, because I had to redo all the work. And so I'm like, I can't be in that scenario again.
Yeah.
And I think just giving someone a bad grade at the end of the semester, like that's not my style, right? Like, I'm not gonna just write someone off. I'm gonna go and help them, and that's
Yeah.
gonna take multiple hours. And so I'm like, I that's it's just not in my soul to kind of leave
No,
someone
at the end
hanging.
of the day, what's important is, I think, what's on your mind. So
Yeah,
don't worry
yeah,
about, other people too much. But it's really my pleasure and honor to get to know you, and
yeah.
I'd love to, continue to talk with you, I mean, in the future. So this is just the beginning, but thank you so much for this opportunity. And then just
Good.
one last thing is,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, we are running out of time. So one last thing is, how do you, juggle so many balls and,
Yeah.
I mean, like being a mom,
Yeah.
CSIO, a CISO, also a student,
Yeah.
and also at your work, you're wearing multiple hats. So, do you have any secret
Yeah. I mean,
secrets?
yeah, I think for me, you know, I'm super thoughtful about like my
Mhm,
exercise and the food
mhm,
I'm putting in my body,
mhm,
taking care of kind of my soul. So a lot
mhm,
of journaling. I'll just kind of
mhm.
collect some thoughts at the end of the day of like what went well,
Wow.
what didn't, you know, just kind of like downloading it. I'm really talented at delegation, so
Mhm,
really empowering like all my leaders to go and get great work done. And so a lot of times it's more of me giving some insight of, hey, can you take a, you know, stab at this, and they go off, they work the work, right? So there's not a ton of outside of like strategic level documentation.
mhm,
A lot of it is I've empowered everybody below me. So that's really helpful too. I think with school, it's a little tough right now. So Monday nights are my school nights. So my husband takes the kids, and I'll spend
um,
about, I'll do like 5 to 9 to try to knock some things out. This is the first time that I feel like just overburdened with 2 classes.
oh,
So I think I might go to more of like one class a semester, just because there's just a lot in in both classes. So it's just kind of hitting me both. Like if I was doing one of them, I think it would be totally manageable.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to work through that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's just kind of taking care of my body and my health, and then the rest is just a priority game, right? Like sometimes life is heavier at work and sometimes it's heavier at home, and I've got to adjust. So I always say that it's just like a teeter totter, right? Like it just adjusts exactly where I need it at that time. And I think being super focused on like what needs to get done, and in the morning say, hey, what are the 3 things I need to accomplish today, instead of like trying to hit everything.
Yeah.
I'm really picky about my email. That's helpful too. Like I've had numerous people tell me like, oh, like, just let your email go. But like, I'm just a little too neurotic. So I always get back to people generally, within hours of them emailing me. And I think it's just part of my personal brand that like, hey, if you write me something, I'm going to get back to you. So
I like that.
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all your
Yeah,
secrets
thank you
with
so
us.
much, Dr. J. I appreciate you. I'm loving the class. It's been really fun.
Great, great. So nice to spend some time with you now, and I look forward to our future meetings. But thank you so much again, and have a
All
great
right, see you
evening.
later.
Don't work
Have a
too
good
hard.
night. Bye.
See you.